form. I don't know where you have to sign it or when, but the planning board's gotta sign it, so I've gotta leave it here with the town clerk. And then I'm gonna send an email out and ask them to come in to sign it. This belongs to you.
What happened? I had a thing in here.
No, I took it out because I thought we were
Take it
gonna
out.
start.
Why would you take it out?
Because I was gonna be over here to open the door.
Well, can't have a locked door in a meeting.
Nobody will be able to hear with that thing open.
No. And lock
I can let people in when they need to come in.
Yeah, I said right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Mr. Bean can sit over there. Mr. Bean, you can sit right up here if you'd like.
Aye, sir.
This is a little trial run here, first time doing this, so.
Thank you.
With the COVID. Trying to keep everybody 6 feet away from everybody. Bruce, I assume we don't have any minutes from the last meeting? Bruce, are you gonna walk up when we leave? You know how that code?
Nope.
I'm gonna have to talk to Michelle. I don't know if mine works. No one seems to know if I put in the number and it doesn't take it to the envelope. So he's gonna give me Andy's number and so I can get Andy to come down for it and lock it up. Because I haven't had a chance since I gave him the new number to see if it even, the last one didn't work, so.
Well, when we're done, I'll wait until Andy gets here.
So your neighbor's house is on the market, huh?
They get tired of trying to auction thing
Hey, Mike?
How you doing?
Good, how are you, buddy?
Good, thank you.
They gotta put that much back into it.
Well, no, someone made a bad choice.
Oh, yeah.
I have no sympathy for banks.
He is right.
What are you waiting for?
6 o'clock. That clock is fast. Because this is gonna come on at 6, right, Bruce?
It's on now.
I mean, the
Oh, the audio will come on right at 6 o'clock.
yeah, it's 5:59 right now.
Okay.
Should we wait till 6:01 just to give it a cushion?
Sure.
Don't want someone to say they missed something.
Number plate on my car is YCL8. Why be late?
Yeah, why do I ask my wife that all the time.
The smile you don't see means you have no regret.
At 6 o'clock, we'll give it to 6:01 just as a cushion, because I don't know what the timing is on this thing. And then we'll proceed. Mr. Bean, this year we're gonna make a change, just so you know. All the alternates have a right to sit up here and ask any many questions they would like to, if they choose to. The only thing you can't do is vote at the end.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr.
And more input, I thought it'd be good.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have some drawings tonight? What was that?
We're gonna get into that as soon as we can open the meeting. All right, 6:01, we're gonna open the meeting. Can everyone please stand for the pledge? Mr. Skillings, please lead us.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll get started. What I think we'll do is we'll do a verbal announce who's here, so you people know who you're dealing with. We'll start from my left.
Larry Brown here.
Steve Baker.
Mike Boyer.
Sean Skillings. Philip Bean.
Stan Nato, Chairman. Okay, so I'm gonna take this off. My glasses aren't gonna let me. So, before we start, I guess the question I wanna have is, are you representing everyone here? Is this all part of the applicants, or is there someone here that is a neighbor, or that just choose to come to the meeting?
It is, let me quick intros. My name is Chris Weisel. I'm the attorney representing Dan Jackson and his wife Kim. David Francor is a realtor who actually has the listing on the Caputo's property, who are the owners. They are not here. As I explained in my letter, Dan and Kim have a purchase sale agreement to purchase
But
the Caputo's land. So we're all together.
shouldn't be the Caputos the one applying for this, because it's not been a transfer of property?
Well, the application is in the applicant's name.
And Caputo.
Caputo's joined in it. They co-signed the application, and as owners of the property, they signed the authorization to go see and all that. So they have, in essence, given, as agents say, the applicant can apply, for something in my name. It's no different than, I think, people coming for a planning board asking for site plan review or ZBA, because they're intending to purchase the property, but the purchase sale agreement, frankly, is contingent upon getting the variance. So they're the party of interest to say.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Yep,
You're not representing the Caputos, though?
through their agency I am, yes.
You are. Because my question was gonna be, what if in fact this sale wasn't to take place? Then in testimony tonight wouldn't be good to, because if anything happens, it goes with the property, as you know, not the person. So, my question would be, shouldn't the Caputos be here?
I don't believe they need to be here. They signed an authorization. All
They get a
they-
power of attorney type thing, is that what you're saying?
It's an authorization to represent.
The Caputos signed that.
By signing the application, they do that. So, in fact, I have done some legal work for the Caputos as their attorney in relation to cleanup work after their planning board lot line adjustment application was approved. So there was a contingency, the planning board has explained in the letter to do some proposed deeds, or maybe I hadn't explained that. So I did that. When the Jacksons wanted to buy, one of the merged lots, they needed an attorney. Mr. Francor knows me, suggested that. The Caputos were all in favor because of my familiarity with the properties. They had a jump. I, as an attorney, worry about a bit of a conflict of interest. Technically, I'm, representing them here. But with the Caputo's authorization, that's why I explained in my letter, they co-signed the application, so as owners, to authorize these people to come before you to make this presentation for their property.
All right, so I'm gonna give it to the, okay, Mr. Brown?
The question would be, who has binding authority to sign for any conditions imposed on property?
That I would recommend that both sign it, that the applicant, would probably be the person, if you impose conditions on it to do something after the fact, that you would want the applicant to sign it, so, because they're the ones who are probably gonna do it. You would also want the owner to sign something to that effect, because it's relating to the property and, it has to bind them,
Then, again, who has, shall I say, testamentary capacity? Who can sign for them right now the agreement? Or are we dealing with a situation that it needs to go back to a second and third party calling you first party? Who has authority to sign? And is the power of attorney that
I don't have a power of attorney, but if there is a, we are here as authorized agents to get that, depending on what the condition is, the applicant can certainly agree to it, and the Caputos would be happy, to have it done if it's not something that, the other thing is I'm in telephonic contact, so I can reach them on the spot if I need be. I asked them if they were gonna come up, and they deferred not to, thinking that these people would sign with them. So let's say you impose some kind of condition that will grant, the variance, but you gotta do something on the land as a part of the development of it as you propose. The Caputo's gonna say, fine with me, we just wanna sell it. And if that's something that a future person building the house on it has got to do, they have to agree to do it.
so be it?
And
The buyers that are sitting here have a legal, equitable interest in that property.
Right.
Please, no jumping in,
oh, I'm sorry.
all right? We're gonna,
Absolutely.
When you
I'm sorry, I
speak-
didn't realize that.
I saw it going.
when we get going, I'm gonna give some, how we wanna run things, but right now, I wanna make sure we're not going down a road we shouldn't be going down. All right? Because I've been wondering about this, without, even though the Caputos signed this, there's really no representation in my mind here for them. Without either a power of attorney. I mean, you can have someone sign an application, but if they don't show up for the meeting, what good is it? I mean, you say you're authorized, do we have anything in writing from the Caputos saying that this
They signed the application.
signed application, but for this gentleman to represent them?
Well, I think that the attorney who stated it represents the Caputos.
But I'd like to see it in black and white.
I didn't anticipate that. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna give it to the board. Does anybody else think that I'm going a little over on this, or do you think we should proceed, or what does this board think?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
No.
Philip Bean, on the May 5th letter from the law firm, it states the property owners authorize the variance application. So whether it's a text or whatever the Esquire has that authorizes him, just provide that. But I take it on its face value that he is authorized to proceed.
Well, in addition to the representation of my letter, Mr. Bean, the application, there were signature pages, and they were filed with the town and counterpart, because they sent it to the Caputos to sign, and they sent it to the Jacksons to sign, and they signed it, and therefore they're authorizing me to speak on their behalf tonight. Not much like a surveyor comes before, an engineer comes before a planning board, a ZBA asks for something, you have a letter of authorization, and sometimes people don't, they don't show up. A lot of years I've been doing that, and that's the case. If you have the signed authorization, it's the purpose for the signed
So what's this board's
authorization.
pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I will quote from the May 5th letter, which says, "All have signed the town's variance application form as applicants/owners. The owners have signed the sidewalk authorization. All have authorized my representation of applicant before the Milton ZBA and to explain their application as follows."
And whose letter is that?
Mine,
Voila.
Right, but that's what I'm getting at. We're, in my mind, I can tell you, the field I'm in, we'd have to have another document stating to protect our own interests, all right? We'd be looking for another document stating that you have not only representing these people, but you're also representing them.
Well, I thought I did that by virtue of having them sign the authorization, saying that in my application, which they signed, incorporates by reference my letter as if everything in my letter was a part of the application, because the application has
What's the
elements
board-
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it says see letter, and they saw that when they signed it, so, you know, they didn't sign the letter, I did, but
What's the board's pleasure?
That, we live in extraordinary times.
Yeah, that's true.
And to borrow a phrase from baseball that ain't playing much, give the bum a break.
Anyone else?
I'm inclined to proceed.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so that's what we're gonna do.
Is Mr. Caputo available by via phone?
I believe so.
Let's put him on.
Let me find his number. Do you have it? You want it, Tom? Please?
The last thing we wanna do is go through all this process and find out we didn't have the authority to do anything, because the owner of the property wasn't here.
Yeah, well, we can speak to them, and then what they say, Deb Caputo is usually who I talk to, and I did all through the planning board process, fix for her husband. They can say that verbally, and I'd be happy to supplement, you know, with a writing that confirms what we said, and so that you have something for your file to do that.
We can use that phone right there and put it on speakerphone.
If someone answers and says, Joe's Bar and Grill,
Yeah, I'm hungry, I want a pizza.
I must have their contact, hold on.
I mean, we can always make that part of the stipulation that a hard copy comes from the property owner
Yeah,
within the,
Mr. Chairman, would you like to call from your speakerphone? You could try, I have a home phone and a cell, I'd probably try the home at this point.
hang on, let me see how I turn, yeah, go ahead.
978 is the area code. 687-6968. Excuse me.
Do you have to dial 9 or anything to get out here, Bruce?
I have no idea.
You might have to dial 1 because it's long distance.
Probably. We'll try that again, please.
Trying to text her to tell her to pick up the phone.
One,
I don't answer my home phone at all.
978,
687-6968.
if this doesn't work, we'll proceed in this,
Or we can try your cell too.
well, if I can't get this phone to work. I can't remember the last time I made a phone call from this office.
I've got a lot of bars, so we can try this one too. You know.
See, nothing's happening, that's why I'm wondering if we gotta put,
Line or something?
I don't remember.
Did you?
Why don't you
even know.
just
Nine.
try dial the
I don't, do you have to press 9 to get outside line?
9 and call the local number to test it.
Yeah, call mine.
Debbie J. Franker. This is your phone trying to call you right now. Are you home?
Hang on, wrong number.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you pick up.
If I can get this
Hang on
phone
one
work.
second. Stay on.
Oh, have them call in.
You want me to put on speaker on this?
Yeah, have them call here.
What extension?
Hang
Have
on.
them call in.
What's the number here, you know?
No, I just lost it.
He's gonna have to listen to that old lady,
Yeah, gonna have to listen 10 minutes.
5-minute tirade.
Do you want me to put it on this speakerphone?
No, that's all right.
Mr. Chairman,
I can have her call you if you want.
Yeah, the problem is to get through the switchboard part of this thing.
you want to try just on my speakerphone?
Yeah,
You know, part of this?
The city wants you to authorize the meeting, that it's okay for you people to have a meeting, and then we'll follow up with a letter after the fact.
No, I
And I
wa-
can speak on their behalf and represent
That
them.
Chris can represent you. Hang on a second.
That's what I did.
No, we got you right here. Go ahead.
May I approach?
Put it right here, next to the speaker.
Hey, Deb, this is Chris Weiskel, and I'm going to put, you are on speakerphone. We're at the commencement of the ZBA hearing, and the chairman of the board is going to also speak. Because the question is, they're asking if, you know, I have authority to present this on your behalf and on behalf of the Jacksons, and if they propose conditions of approval, you know, if they deal with a matter that the Jacksons have to do, we say yes, and that will bind you. Let me put the phone down. Is that apropos to what I summarized?
Mr. Caputo?
Yes, I feel like I'm not, I can't hear you very well.
Okay.
Can you do this on my house phone?
Well, problem is, I can't seem to get this phone to
Let
work.
me try that, let me try it on the house phone.
All right, we'll call you right back.
My house phone is the 978 number, okay?
Yes.
96968, right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, 687-6968?
Yes, that's my house phone number.
Okay, I'll call right now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll do this one now.
Anyone else have a phone you want to try?
I get no service up here, so.
Hello?
Deb, let's try that.
Hey, can you hear us now?
Okay. This is so much better, yeah.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
This is Stan Nato, Chairman of the ZBA. And I brought this question up. I really don't have nothing in the document stating that the attorney present has the authority from you as landowners to represent on your behalf.
Yes, it's absolutely fine.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
All right.
That was simple enough. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for checking in. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so now I have to start off by reading. Excuse me. Public hearing. All right. July 7th, 2020. Why does it say July 20? Oh, that's when this was posted. Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing be held 6 p.m. July 23rd at the Milton Town Hall, 424 White Mountain Highway, Milton, New Hampshire, concerning a request by Daniel Jackson for a variance from Article 3 of the Milton zoning ordinance, relief from front setbacks, relief from side setback, and Article 13, relief from wetlands buffer setbacks for property located at 240 Bowen Road, Milton, map 23, lot 76-3, and the low-density residential zone. This public notice has been sent out as to the abutters for the above case. Copies of this application, this is as of the letter. Okay, so that's what we're here for tonight, this meeting, for this variance. I ask that if you want to speak, you acknowledge, we'll acknowledge you can speak. Get up, go to the mic, announce your name and your address, just for the minutes, because we have to rely on this machine here for our minutes tonight because of the things with COVID and everything, plus we lost the person that normally does it. So please bear with us with that. Bruce might be doing some scratching over there minutes, I'm not sure.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. All right, so you're up.
Thank you.
First thing we're going to do, though, after you present your thing, just so you know, this is something new this year for you guys. Everything we're going to do is whether or not they determine a regional impact. All right, so that's one thing. After he states his case, we're going to entertain that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's great. Bruce, if I put this on top of this machine, I'm not gonna.
No,
Okay,
you
thank
go.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Chris Weiskell. I'm a lawyer from Dover, New Hampshire, the firm Weiskell, Bach, Tillinghast, and Bolduc. My address 561 Central Avenue in Dover. We have, did I do something?
I don't know.
You turned it on.
I turned this,
Yeah.
should I put this off again?
Yes, it's been just
3 minutes is going to blow up.
hold the button. Hold
Hold
the
it.
button until it goes out.
It is not sacred. Take it off the podium.
Let go.
Still blinking, Bruce.
All right, the screen's down anyway.
Yeah, what happens is.
Oh, now it's up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes. You don't have no board or anything to show us. Everything is what we have here,
I have
correct?
some additional exhibits.
Okay.
I'm not going to use this machine, but I have a couple of other things I want to present to supplement the application, a deed and a couple of other plans. And I take, does every member of the board have the 2 plans that I submitted? Because I have smaller copies of them if you don't. I won't break anything, Bruce. I'll stand back a bit.
You can't hurt it now, Aaron.
12048.
Other man, thank you very much. I don't want to break anything. We have resolved that I'm here before, on behalf of the owners and the applicants, with the owner's authorization. I have explained the property in my letter, outlined 3 variances which are requested to accommodate the proposed building development shown on the variance application plan that's submitted. I submitted 2 plans with my application. I'm glad all the board members have them, so I had other copies to give, but I won't bother. Let me put that down. Well, my letter summarizes the legal arguments, the elements, that need to be met, and I'm going to embellish those. My experience is usually cases are driven by facts, so I want to embellish the facts more, and everything I'm explaining factually is germane to all the variances requested. I think it's important because cases are on facts. Everyone can hear me okay through this mask? Because this is
I can.
my first post-pandemic public hearing in person.
Ours too.
Yeah, good. We're all, it's a new thing, huh? So, the reason I gave you two plans, including the planning board plan, is to appreciate and understand the three lots that Caputo's own. And I do also want to give you, Mr. Chairman, I have one copy only of the deed. I referred to the deed by which the Caputos became owners of their property by the Stratford Brook and Page number and the owner, and I'd like to give a copy for the record.
Okay, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
When I said, to go right ahead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna read all 5 requirements. And if there's anything you wanna address or speak to, we'll do it when we read that. I was probably giving you an area to summarize right now, an opening statement per se, of what you want to do, because I don't want you to have to repeat things over and over and over. You follow me?
I do, however, the facts that I want to explain are germane to many of the criteria. So if we're gonna go through this, let's talk about factor number 1.
You want to just start right off with the...
Well, no, my preference would be to think of it in terms of, I want to discuss the facts, because the facts are relevant to all 5 criteria, and you don't want me standing here repeating those facts for every criteria. My presumption would be. So I'm sort of setting the stage factually, then I'll address those things. So factually, I want to explain the history of how the Caputos own this lot. It's significant for me to explain that the deed granted them 3 separate lots that are described as lots of record, which your zoning ordinance acknowledges as a lot of record. They're going to the planning board to combine those 3 lots into 2, is an approval they obtained, but they have not, as a matter of title, created 2 lots yet. So that plan's approved, but they've never conveyed their property out. They got 3 lots of record, and they have the ability to convey 1 larger lot and keep 1 larger lot, with the middle lot being split in 2, like the plan shows. But that's not been done, so as a matter of title, as a matter of law, they still own 3 lots, and that's significant to me, because I want to pull from that to some of the criteria I want to address, and address some of the points in your zoning ordinance that allows development on lots of record that are even smaller in size than these, and that's relevant to, is there substantial justice done by granting the variance? Is it within the spirit and intent of the ordinance?
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, how do you propose we act on a fact that does not exist?
It does exist. If the plan exists, and you can grant a variance for development to occur on the lot as the planning board approved, and if it's granted, the Caputos will convey the vacant merged lot pursuant to the planning board, pursuant to a deed I drafted on their behalf that shows how it does, and the Jacksons will have the variance so they can proceed with development. If you deny the variance, the Caputos, as owners of the property, back to square one, they say, I may not want to convey the lot as merged by the planning board approval. I have the authority to do that by virtue of how the planning board acted, but I may not want to make that a fait accompli. Right now, the town tax maps show the Caputos land as 1 merged lot, like 1 big one, and that municipalities often do that. Until the end of December of 2021, owners in this state have a state law right to request a town to unmerge those lots and show them on the tax map as the 3 lots of record that the title records and the deeds and stuff established to be. Why would they do that? Because maybe they want to keep the lot on which their house is developed in the middle lot and sell the other lot to the neighbor, which they would have a legal right to do if you don't grant this variance or something. So,
Can I stop you for a minute?
yes, you can.
I got a technical question, maybe Bruce can answer. It's been a long time since I've been on the planning board. with our decisions, you have an X window, you have to start the process or it's now on void. Is the same thing with the planning board?
Only if it's in your local regulations.
And do we know that?
Do I know that?
Do we know if it is?
It's not.
Oh, that's what I'm asking you. So,
There's no time frame called out currently in the subdivision regulations of the town of Milton. So what you're basically asking is, are they up against some time clock to get the plat signed and then record it? Well, the answer is no.
okay, because with us, as you know, we have a window. You have to start the process, or you know,
Well,
you.
you have to substantially vest a variance or a special exception that's granted by the zoning board of adjustment. You've got 2 years to do this.
Correct. So if you would have said yes, my next question is going to be, when did the planning board rule on this, to see if it's even, okay,
It's not,
I'm sorry, go ahead, just,
So if I can footnote or embellish what Bruce said, the planning board approved lot line adjustment plan. It has in fact been recorded
It has
at the
been.
registry. I have a plan number, and I did that because your planning department wanted to see the proposed deeds by which the Caputos would sell this lot. So that's how I became involved first time. And we drafted according to the plan, and we actually recorded the plan, because the town took that on their part. Once they got the deeds and saw that the deeds were going to be correct, the town recorded the plan. We didn't even do that.
But the question that I guess I do have a question for Attorney Weiskel, and that is, did you go to the Board of Selectmen to request the unmerging of the 3 lots that have been merged, either through the doctrine of merger that's contained in the zoning ordinance, or a tax assessor, because the lots were owned by one person and they were contiguous? It's easier for the town, as you know, to send out one tax deed.
Yeah, we have no
One
problem.
tax bill.
They have no problem with sending out one tax bill.
No,
And they
my
haven't
question is-
gone to the selectmen to request that they be unmerged. My point, because I'm trying to set the stage with some facts, is that,
hang on, Larry, I think I know. Go ahead, I'm just,
you have in your zoning ordinance, you know, a section under, I think it's Article 7, I quoted in my letter, that allows for development on lots of record as long as they're 5,000 square feet in size. And this merged lot, I gotta look at my letter, I think it's like 28,000 square feet in size. The fact that I'm asking for a variance on behalf of the Jacksons, the Caputos, to allow development with some setbacks on this smaller lot, I'm thinking, you know, now we're getting ahead of myself, consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, does substantial justice, you know, because you're in town, you're allowing even smaller lots to be developed, and by analogy, I'm saying, to the extent you allow that, you want to allow it on this bigger lot because it's reasonable. Is it reasonable to grant this setback relief? Yes, because you could have even a tighter development.
but right now, we have another issue.
Right.
And I think Mr. Brown and I are on the same page with this. You're asking us to rule on something that hasn't happened.
Yes, it has happened.
No, it hasn't happened. You have not, A, gone to the selectmen and asked to make it 3 lots again, and B, that has not become record as 2 lots now instead of 3.
It's a matter of property law. The planning board's approval of a lot, is it easier to hear me without this?
You can do whatever you choose.
Okay. I mean, if I come approach, I'll put it on close, but I'm far away. And it doesn't fog up my glasses. Planning board authorization gives the Caputos the right to convey, the lot is a different size. If they never act on that, it's always in a sort of a holding pattern that they have the right to do that. The town has the right to tax it as one big merged lot as it has. They have the right to unmerge it if they request. They're not requesting, because they really want to do is convey the lot per the lot line adjustment with the variance so the Jacksons can build. The town also has the right to tax it as 2 lots now, which probably be a higher assessment and a greater tax rate because it's been approved by the planning board. So we agree with that. Notwithstanding, until the end of next December, even if it's that, if this wasn't granted, didn't build, they didn't convey the merged lot, they could still go back and request it to be 3 because they haven't conveyed to sever title consistent with the lot line adjustment
Let me
plan.
stop you there. Mr. Brown, go ahead, Ed. You-
We are in a mildly looping conversation. We are not following item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In your covering letter, sir, you laid out things which you are referring to as facts and which are germane to the issue. And it is, I come from New York. We regard sarcasm as humor. One of the marvels of the Colt revolver is that you could fire 6 shots in the hope that one would hit the target. You have covered 5 points. You also introduced the real estate broker, who is a party of interest to the sale, as someone who could give expert opinion for the properties around that neighborhood. That is, to me, curious. Secondly, you brought in the point that the page 5, paragraph 3, that the applicant needs to make the sale because there's money riding on it.
I'm sorry, because
there's money riding on it, my phrase. And I do not see how the question of financial gain or loss is germane to the use of the land.
it's not. I mean, I'll concede that.
Why it is in your letter.
All right, let me address number 2 first, and I'll come back to your point one about the realtor. And if it moves us along, I'm happy, to address the 5 criteria and then pull from my facts and address the, if you prefer to go that route. I'm not adamant and might proceed this way. I make the point about the Caputos losing a sale if the variance is not granted for a reason to address whether or not there is a substantial justice. They don't need to make the sale. They want to. That's one of the reasons they went to the planning board. One of the points I make in my letter as an overall observation is that by going to the planning board and presenting their lots of records, say let's make them 2 instead of 3, they decrease the non-conformity of the 3 lots. Still non-conforming, but they're less non-conforming.
Less non-conforming.
And that's generally a good thing for towns. So the point about substantial justice is the case law in New Hampshire. I mean, you guys all have your green books, and you're educated by the state how to, deal with these elements and stuff. And I use the same case law and stuff. And there's a Supreme Court case that says, imagine that substantial justice is putting it on a scale and weighing the harms to the people who are presenting the application, owners and applicants, and compare that to the harm to the town. The variance is denied. It's granted. It's denied. I'm sorry. So in either case, you deny the variance. So what happens to the town if you deny the variance? So now I'm addressing the substantial justice point.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of the sketch on that.
But I'm trying to answer Mr. Brown's
I know.
So, the Caputos lose a sale, they can't do this. The Jacksons lose the opportunity to build a camp where they have relatives down the road. And that, to them, that's a big harm. And on the scale, boom, it goes down farther. On the town side, by denying the variance, they're gonna be able to do this. So the town doesn't get to strictly enforce the 3 setbacks from which we want relief. So how is the town harmed? I would submit not greatly. Because if you look on the road, there's a lot of small development on small lots. It's in keeping with the general neighborhood. I would argue I have some more plans to submit to represent that point.
Okay, now you're getting into another whole thing.
So I see the scale tipping in a way that says substantial justice is done by granting the variance. Because if you deny the variance, the applicant and owner's harm outweighs the harm to the town. Shall I address the second point about the realtor? You people, New Hampshire law is clear that you people are the arbiters here on these elements, including my having to prove whether or not granting the variance will adversely affect the property values of abutters. I have to show that it doesn't. I would advance that it would not. You people can use your good sense to say it would not, or would. Often in cases, I try to offer someone to testify to that point who has a little bit more knowledge and a little bit of a thumb on the pulse of the real estate market to say whether that's true or not. If this was a contested case and we had experts on either side, you know, it's not who presents the most experts or the guy with the most impressive resume or whatever. You people have the right to weigh, you know, how good is the evidence that you hear. So my only point was, Mr. Frankor, you know, as a Realtor who's got a lot of experience and is involved in this, it can give relevant testimony for you to consider in the auto, and I want him to. That he has an interest at stake, yeah, he does, and you can say, well, I discount, I'm not gonna believe anything Dave Frankor says. But to make the point, I asked him out, if this variance were granted and Jackson's built their house, and you got the opportunity to get a listing of another property on the road, would you take it? Sure. Would you then have to tell those people, you know, they better lower their price because the Jacksons just built a house? And he said, no, I'm not gonna do that. If anything, it's, you know, it's property values are just, well, I won't speak for him, but that's the
Okay.
point of why I offered to have him.
Does anyone else on the board here have a concern with, I'm assuming you know where this has led to. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to comment about it, or?
I would say this, Mr. Chairman, is I take at face value that we obviously address the land issue here, but we're dealing with human beings and property owners and prospective purchasers, and I think that the Esquire in his presentation is trying to fill in the blanks and back up what the planning board approved unanimously. So I get your drift, perhaps quicker than Mr. Brown, or perhaps differently. And but I get it, and I support it. Thank you. Mr.
Anyone else have anything that input, or Mr. Skillings?
Yes. We not heard anything from the abutters to this property that you listed here?
I have not, no,
No complaints from
I
them?
no objection.
Unfortunately, we're gonna be missing some documentation for this meeting, because since Ashley left, we'd have no one in her seat. So Bruce has been trying to fill in, it's his birthday together today, matter of fact, so he's been here on his birthday.
No submitted emails or letters. So
Right,
voters on this.
As far as I know, we have not received anything from any of the police, fire, or DPW, negative or positive, and the same for any of butters.
Just nothing at all.
Right. Mr. Bouillot, anything on this?
No.
I'm a little concerned with the lack of abutter information. Exactly.
Well, we can't make an abutter send a letter, show up, you know.
Right.
As an attorney representing an applicant, I say I'm always overjoyed when butters don't show up, because I always take it if they show up, either they're gonna voice support, or you know, usually I'm concerned that they're gonna come here and object, and there's no one objecting. That's the point I'd make.
Mr. Brown?
That an abutter would have an affirmative duty to reply if they had a strong interest. You went back to the beginning. Do we have all fees paid?
You have all the what?
Fees
on-
paid.
Fees.
Fees.
Or application fee.
Everything is.
Yeah, well, we
everything's
wouldn't be
paid.
here tonight if we...
The
Notices were
abutters.
sent to the abutters were checked, everything went out on time, the
Right.
public notice went out.
Good.
I would have said something if it was not all in order. I have a suggestion, if you have concern about butters because of the COVID pandemic, is that when you open the public comment portion of the public hearing, it's live streaming out here. The people who are, have an interest in this case or are abutters may not have wanted to come here physically, but if you give them that phone number and give them 5 minutes to call in, they're at home and they can still weigh in.
All right, but that's not what I was trying to get on, it's not the butters. I'm still hung up a little bit on the fact we're gonna rule on something that hasn't happened. The fact that this property is still legally 3 separate lots. This planning board decision was not put into play.
It was recorded at the registry of deeds. And the town has the right to tax it as 2 lots. And the Caputos have the right to convey it as 2 lots. They just haven't yet, because they don't know who they want to convey it to.
There is a difference between the transfer of title of real property and subdividing or doing boundary line adjustments on lots, on a plat. Am I being clear or not?
Yeah, another way to explain it, Mr. Chairman, there's no one to give a deed to. Because if the Caputos give a deed to themselves, they own the other lot, you know, as a property lawyer, they
But
own everything. It's
that would have been
meaningless.
fine until you made the statement that if this doesn't come out the way you wish it to come out, they may choose not to do this at all. That's what I'm hooked on right now, is your statement that you said that they may not even do this if this doesn't turn the way they want it tonight.
Well,
And in my mind, that doesn't sound right.
Well, then let me re-speak, because if Deb Caputo, she doesn't have the ability to live stream and watch, she'd say, no, of course we want to. The reason they went to the planning board is because they want to sell the lot. They didn't want to sell, you know, one of the lots of record, because it's so small, it's not reasonable, you know, it's less reasonable to do something on it.
Okay, and I understand that.
So they want to sell it to somebody, they found buyers, but the buyers say, I will buy it if I can get these variances so I can build this house. So here we are at the variance. The planning board acknowledged that as much, because in its unanimous decisions, Mr. Bean pointed out, it was unanimous at the planning board. They attached a condition that, it's in my letter, that said, the vacant parcel will require an application to the ZBA for relief from the zoning ordinance setback requirements prior to development on the parcel. That's right on the plan.
But that's not an admission that I'm back to your statement, all right? And we know lawyers not gonna say nothing that's not, you know, that's untrue. I mean, you said, okay, that if this doesn't come out the way that you hope it to come out, that they may choose not to even make that 2 lots.
It's one of like a whole bunch of options I could state, and if I started hypothetically stating other options, I don't wanna give the
All right,
chairman
I'm gonna give this back
concern.
to the board again to see what their thoughts are. That's what I'm looking for input on. Is this okay with everyone on the board, or is it, Mr. Brown?
One condition would be that all approvals and subsequent conditions are null and void unless and until within 1 year the previously mentioned division of the property takes place, at which point all subsequent conditions require implementation.
That's one avenue, that's one option.
May I interject one suggestion? The state law says variances are good for 2 years and they become void. I don't believe you have any different law, more strict.
No, but,
So if you were gonna impose the conditions for 1, I'd ask, could it be 2 so it's consistent with the variance law at least?
we're not even talking about whether or not we're gonna do this yet,
Yeah, I
first of
know,
all.
I know.
Let's not go too far. Anyone else have any input on my concern here? Or is everybody comfortable that if this does turn out the way they wish, that we'll address it then? Everyone, is that where we're at?
Enthusiastically so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, then I will proceed forward.
One postscript on that last point about the 2 years is, you know, the reality is, they'll buy it if they get the variance from, you know, to build something, they're gonna have to get financing and stuff. Stuff takes time, you know?
Yeah, but you made testimony here that the town should do this because they're gonna get more tax money once they, 2 lots rather than 3 small ones.
They can do that now.
Well, I
Well,
don't
the
know.
town's taxing it as 1 lot.
Right. So, I mean, but anyway, I guess my question to you, Mr. Woodruff, is should we address at what point should we address this regional impact?
You should have already done it.
I don't know if we should. We're gonna hear some.
You opened the public hearing, you really should have already done it.
I don't agree with you on that. I think it should be done after we hear some of the case, do we know whether or not.
Then,
I don't believe so.
for a convenient record, in whatever order it may be in or out of, I move that this project does not meet the criteria for regional impact. Either traffic, noise.
Did you read the worksheet?
Not in the heated conversation.
I'm sure this was put together as a benefit to us, this worksheet, correct?
I have 3 of them here.
This is not something that's a legal document of any
Oh.
sort, it's just
Yeah,
something,
I'm sorry, I was doing it from,
okay,
That's a guide.
just a guide.
You determine
All
whether
right.
there is either regional impact by this development or
Okay.
potential regional impact.
So, Mr. Brown, you're making a motion that it is not a regional impact.
and I will read through that if you wish.
No, I don't need to, that's just for us, that's a worksheet for us. So, are you making the motion that it's not
I move that it does not meet the 10-point criteria for regional impact.
Okay, and second?
I'll second.
Mr. Skilling, second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's done. So it's not a regional impact in our mind. I just think we should get some, hear something about a case before we determine whether or not it's a regional impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with you on that one. I believe you all know what the case is.
Well, yes and no.
The applicant wants to build a house, the size they want. It needs to have relief from, the front setback requirement of 40 feet, the side setback, it is the side setback.
Side is 25, and we're 10 just for a septic system below ground.
That's right, and from the lakefront?
No, not from the lakefront,
Okay.
from the wetland buffers, that would be between the house and the lake.
All right.
Because the plan, do you have a copy of the variance plan? I'll give you one.
I did it all.
Okay, so
That's all right.
since we've been beating a few dead horses around here, let's go right to the application.
Yeah,
I know.
Just give you this deed and submit it as an extra exhibit. That shows.
Just put it right there for now, and we'll get everything. Is there anything else you're gonna want to submit?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll get it all at one time, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I have copies to pass out to everyone. I have one of
Okay.
these copies for
All
everyone.
right, sure. Go right ahead.
I'll put this on because I'm approaching. This is the deed, Mr. Chairman, I'll give it to you. And I'll explain what this is.
Permission to approve.
What? Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I was gonna give them two. Thank you. Give you another one to give your co-table person, Bruce. I do have one. Small copy, please, of what was on my application, just in case it comes up. Tell you, nothing masks. You can't lift your finger.
I know that, I already tried.
Can I ask a simple question? This shaded area on the map, it's not labeled. What is that?
That shows the area on the merge, the merge lot, post planning board approval, in which you can build a house and any associated structures if you strictly adhere to the setbacks from which we're asking relief.
Yeah.
So it's this little sliver, so the point of that shaded area is you can't build anything in it.
That's the point you were trying to make by presenting that shaded area.
Yes, that was presented, yeah, and that's on the planning board plan too. Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
it's the reasons shaded.
Okay, so let's, are you all set? We'll go right to A, the variance. As you know, you're looking for relief from front setback, relief from side setback, and relief from wetlands buffer setback. All right, so A, number one, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because, and it says in response to whether granting the variance would alter the essential character. So you didn't put a response, you said see the letter, but for the minutes, I need to have you address this.
My letter is, part of that, and in my letter, on page 4, under number 1, I address that specific
And you need to do it
category.
again.
I will, happy to.
For the minutes, you need to do it for the minutes.
That's fine. It's as if you take this part and put it right in the application.
And it's my fault, and I should have done this. What we do is we do a straw vote after each one.
It's not binding. So you could, 4 out of 5, 3, whatever it turns out to be, and then at the end we'll do a vote in general for the whole application.
Follow the procedure.
Do I get to speak at all, or?
Yep, but on the next, when we get to values, because we're on granting the variance will not be contrary to public interest.
Correct.
So, the New Hampshire Supreme Court cases, 2005 decision says and instructs lawyers, people, boards, that this is not an affirmative duty that the applicant's got to show that it furthers the public interest. Rather, it's a double negative. We just have to show that it's not contrary to the public interest. And this Chester Rod Gun Club case, if you get into those facts, the Supreme Court basically said, to get over that bar, to show that, you have to show that whether the requested variance would, quote, unduly and to a marked degree conflict with the basic gist of your zoning ordinance, or alter the essential character of the locality, or threaten the health, public, and safety of the welfare of the town. So let's go with public health, safety, and safety. Okay, I mean, we're not encroaching on any wetlands by the proposed development shown on the variance plan. We're significantly far. The house itself, the garage doesn't encroach on the 50-foot wetland setback, doesn't encroach on the sideline setback, it's 25 feet from that. It's closer to the road than the 40-foot setback, but if you put it in that shaded area, you can't put anything there, and it's better, and it's in the public interest and the public health, safety, the public safety and welfare. The town is better served by protecting the wetlands and being away from the buffer and putting that garage closer to the road than the wetlands. Same thing with the house. If, the house has a 10-foot deck on it, the main structure, most of it is outside the wetland buffer. Because there's this crazy point of wetlands that you can see on the plan, part of it comes closer than 50 feet and as much as 36 feet if you count the 10-foot deck. But the deck is there, and I would submit it's probably a safer thing to have people on a wooden deck than actually on the ground closer, to the people are gonna go down to the pond and stuff, but sitting around and everything, that's a good thing to do. The septic will be designed in accord with NHDES requirements. That alone, if you get that
It has to
approval,
be.
has to be. And to the extent it gets approved, it's not gonna poison Mother Earth or do whatever. The neighborhood, even for the side yard setback, I'm requesting relief for the septic because by definition, it's a structure. Unless I'm wrong, because if you say it's not, I don't need that variance.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm right. So, but it's underground. So the effect, is it's going to be put on the ground and it's restored. The house is some, 50 or more feet, or 40 or 50 feet away from the property line. So the appearance is that it more than meets the 25-foot side yard setback, but the structure's underneath and it will be 10 feet from the property line. Yes.
Let me stop you there for a second. Don't shoot me, but if you eliminated the garage, then you wouldn't be needing that side setback if you moved everything down, correct?
Wrong.
Why?
So I won't shoot you because you're wrong, and I'm going to explain.
Well, everybody loves their garages, including myself. That's why I said don't shoot me.
The setback, the septic has to be put outside the 75-foot protective radius of the well. The well's sort of behind the garage. You can see the big circle
Yep.
that sweeps in. So you start moving it, you shift everything, let's just move it all, we'll put the septic closer to that side. State won't let you do it because now your septic's too close to your well and you might poison, so that's contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare.
I agree.
So granting the variance promotes that. So I think we meet the first criteria. It's not contrary to public interest. I'll address the neighborhood. It gives me a chance to address the other handout.
Well, hang on one second. Mr. Brown had a question.
Since we are, again, sort of in a wave motion and in a straight line, since the two lots do not exist, and there is no formal conveyance of rights, the protected well, if I remember correctly, I think it's page 5, is actually on the Caputo's lot, which is a wetland. Will it be a condition of conveyance that even though it is a wetland and no development can take place on that, that it be further restricted by saying that the Caputos in their transfer agree that this is a protected road.
We could do that with a sentence, or I would probably use 3, 4 sentences in the deed. That'd be the place to do it. So if you wanted to attach that as a condition to the granting of the variance, then I would just include that language in the deed from the Caputos to the Jacksons. And I speak for the Caputos, they wouldn't have any objection to it because they're not gonna do anything further on their lot.
And Mr. Chairman, that's a wellhead protection easement that
Yeah.
Attorney wants to talk about.
I forgot it was a well rather than,
The Caputos deed.
I forgot it was a well rather than,
Condition of approval.
rather than town water. No, for whatever reason, I was thinking.
If I would be drafting that, Bruce, you're right, it would be a wellhead easement encumbering the Caputos land that they keep, but you could create it in the transfer of the land from Caputo to Jackson, saying, it's
Right.
together, they would have the benefit of that easement, it would be encumbering the Caputos property.
Yes.
It would be there. What I frankly would do, because I drafted a proposed description for the Caputos lot that they retain, not that they're conveying it, but if they mortgaged it or whatever, for symmetry, I would
That
add some
would
language.
be
to
a
it.
condition of approval that I would recommend to the board.
Yeah, and it'd be one that we'd welcome, we're happy to accept, because it just cleans things up, it's the point.
Anyone else have any questions to where we're at this point? No? Okay, so,
So the only other thing, before you take your straw vote, and I get hopefully a 5-0 thumbs up, is this exhibit. What is it? Let me explain it, because, it addresses the Rod Club case that says, it doesn't unduly conflict with your zoning ordinance or alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I'm gonna presume you guys know your town, went there, ran down the road, drove down or saw it. I have, what I asked Mr. Olds, who prepared these plans, was to do an overlay plan, taking the town tax map, which is the 3rd page, of my handout, that shows where structures are located along the road, and do a satellite image overlay of that, so you can see that the tax map placement of houses on these lots along Boland Road, close to where we're talking about. It shows other houses close to the road and all that, so it doesn't change the essential neighborhood. So the Caputo's property that the Jacksons want to buy is that part of lot 76 on the 3rd page tax map. That has the number 76 right on top of it. You can see the Caputo's house, on the lower part of that lot. So this tax map represents the town's not taxing as one big lot. But if you go up and down the road, you can see there are a lot of other houses that are close to it, and the satellite does that too. So I'd suggest, present that you should find that granting the variance is not contrary to the public interest, because you're not gonna alter significantly this part of the locality, this part of the neighborhood. Boland Road, as you come off 125 and approach the pond, it's a neighborhood in the LDR district where houses are set back and we have a lot of elbow room and stuff. And then when you get down close to the pond, it's an old established neighborhood where houses are on tiny lots, much smaller even than this. And if you grant this variance, it's sort of in keeping with everything there. It won't essentially alter the locale. I'm done addressing this point. I think we proved that.
okay.
And if I may just make an important point, there's at least several structures that are closer to the water than what you proposed tonight.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
On the same point, going the opposite direction, it is my understanding, I did not see the small print, there is a 40-foot right-of-way already laid out for the town road section, which is superior to the cowpath that goes farther as the hill. Do you know from your reading whether or not that specifically provides for drainage easement?
I didn't research people's deeds up and down this road.
I mean, for the Caputos directly.
The deed I handed the chairman that conveys the 3 lots has no such language in it that would encumber those lots with a drainage easement or anything. Road's pretty flat right there, well graded, very wide, very hard, compact. It becomes much narrower, on these lots, further north. where a road is not depicted, I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but I presume that it may not be a town road at that point. It's on somebody else's property, the road's very narrow. The houses there are even, practically on top of the edge of the traveled way, and even smaller in there.
In the private part of the road.
Yeah.
But wouldn't the shoreline permit cover the drainage? That'd fall under the shoreline permit. Am I correct on that?
I think they would look at that. as
Yeah.
good close.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. But I'm not a wetlands expert, I don't do those permits,
Right,
so.
right.
I'm glad
Well, it's
we-
because it's state, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the engineers mostly do that, the lawyers don't.
Yeah, right.
I didn't look it up, Bruce. Can you tell me what the setback is for the wetlands?
Are you talking what the buffer is, or?
From the buffer, yes, I'm sorry. The wetland buffer.
I'm still under the impression it's 50 feet.
It is, and I say that in my letter, that's what the zoning ordinance does, and Mr. Oles, in his plan, in his note, says that a soil scientist surveyed and depicted where the wetlands are, and he's got it all shaded with, whatever the thing is to make it, this is where the wetlands are, and then he's measured, well, he hasn't shown the entire setback, but he shows where, because there's a real jog that comes in with the wetlands, if you're looking at the zoning plan, there's one point where the house and deck are almost 36.5 feet. Is close to the-
36.6 feet,
Yeah,
yes.
but that's it, at one jagged point. At other points, it's complying with the variance. So it's not like you're granting a variance, for everything to be that close. I'm asking that you grant a variance to allow this proposed development as shown on this plan to do it, and to grant that, you have to grant the variance, because at that point, you get too close to the buffer, not to the wetland, to the buffer. And that's only the deck that's there,
Yeah, it is 50 feet.
It is 50 feet.
It actually says it on the plan. I didn't see it, I'm sorry.
Says on the plan, and I say that in my letter, we're on page, is it 3? I lay out specifically the variances that we're requesting.
Okay, before we do a straw vote, does anyone have anything else to say? No, he can't vote anyway, so. With that said, we're gonna close, number 1, and we're gonna do a straw vote. From my left, Mr. Brown.
Would you please, for the record, just state item 1 again?
Item 1, a positive vote, or a yes in this case, would be that the applicant should receive, as far as number 1, the variance will not be contrary to public interest.
Aye.
Agree with that?
Mr. Baker, should you have an aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the chairman says aye, so that's 5-0. Okay, we've got number 2. The spirit of ordinance is observed because,
And I'm gonna take a shortcut. The same Chester Road case that said, those are the criteria that you look at to see whether it's contrary or not contrary to public interest. So this is sometimes you address to see if the spirit of the ordinance is being observed. So for those same reasons that I just said, and you all voted yes, I think you should similarly say the spirit of the ordinance is observed. I mean, we're not threatening the public health. The placement of the septic is a reasonable position, and preferably in the best place it can be, because it's outside the well radius. It doesn't change the essential character of the locality. So the spirit of the ordinance is, I don't want to get back and get ahead of myself addressing the hardship argument, but I would say for the same exact criteria and the same reason the Supreme Court says you look at the same thing for both, you treat them as both. I will yield the mic, let you take your straw vote there.
okay, I'm gonna go back to what I said originally.
Yep.
And on the 36.5 foot, rather than the 50 foot for the buffer of the wetland, if we eliminated the garage and moved the house down towards the other 25 foot property line, which would be, okay, then wouldn't that eliminate you being within that one point of the wetlands?
Yeah, my bigger plan, Mr. Chairman. I haven't had Steve Olds, I'm not trying to fence with your BQ.
No, but I mean, this isn't to scale, so that's why I'm asking you.
Well, it's to scale, but this has been reduced, so the scale.
All right, I can't measure this to say, if we move the house down 20 feet, just what I see here, it looks like it would work, but,
The topography of the land also has an effect, because you can actually disturb more land by, Steve designs this in fashion that he's disturbing as little land
Okay.
as possible. And when you have topography, you're gonna have runoff in different areas, and that's why it's designed this way, to impact the property
So
as little
what
as possible.
Dave Francourt told me in my ear, because I wasn't privy to it, because he's worked with Steve Olds also, is he said, you know, there's a topography to the lot that is not shown on this plan. We don't have topo lines.
yeah.
I was out there, and it's sort of flat, and then it drops down to the pond. So I can't address it exactly, but Dave's saying that Steve has tried to design this, you know, to take into account, you know, making the site, how do I want to say this?
The least impact to the land, because when you start disturbing
Come up to
land,
the mic.
Wait a minute, I gotta stop you there. You're building a garage, you're impacting the land.
Now, if you move the house.
the house and
Well,
the
right,
garage-
but if you eliminated the garage, that's less impact on the land.
Yes, but if you're building in certain areas based on the topography, you're gonna move water to different parts of that lot. So you can't just say on a site that I can just move the house here, because you might have to bring in a bunch of fill, you might have to do all kinds of different things.
In a minute,
When
Larry.
you start doing that and you're digging a foundation into a certain, a garage doesn't go into the ground like a foundation on a house does, so you're not impacting the same. And I can tell you that when an engineer looks at the site, and Steve, and I know because I've worked with this from the very beginning, the whole goal here was to impact the land and the runoff, future runoff of the water, because you've got water coming off the roofs, you've got different things, is to set things in a certain order, and that's what the engineer does. Builders don't just go on a site and say, I'm gonna build a house here. The engineer does it, and the idea is to impact the lot and the future runoff and the drainage of the lot. When you do commercial construction or residential construction, you're always looking at where the drain's coming, where are you locating water, what are you doing? And I
So-
think the totality of everything, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just stating what I know. The totality of the plan was done in that fashion.
So you're saying there's no runoff of a roof of a garage?
I'm not saying that, I didn't say that. I said that the impact of the whole
change.
lot and the way that you design a house and you put it on a lot has a lot to do with where it goes. And Steve Olds, who isn't here today, can't speak for it, but I know that that was a big factor. In fact, we did that originally when I called him up and got him out on the lot. That was a big thing, because the lot has undulations and different things, and you don't want to bring in fill, and you want to disturb the lot as little as possible. And the homeowner's looking for obviously a garage too, so that's all taken in consideration. So for us to sit here and just say, oh, flip the house over here and dig an 8-foot hole over there that you weren't going to fill in and do, it may impact the lot a lot differently. And
Mr. Brown?
That's my only point.
The point that the chair, from my understanding, was making is that the house is nominal 900 square feet, times 2 levels, 1,800. And the garage is nominal 575. If you subtract 6 from 9, you get 300. If you ditch the garage, you come out of 300 square feet of less impervious surface. Moving the house to the footprint of the garage, since you were disturbing the grade to build the garage, you lose nothing.
I mean, we all want a garage. I mean, I love my garage too, but we sit here trying to find a way not only to try to take your interests in hand, but also what's in the best interest of the lot, the people, the town, and
So if I can address that point, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Mr. Olds, because I haven't had the conversation that he has. If you move or slide the house southerly, I mean, you got a longer connection to septic. Septic can't move because of the well radius, And you're right, there's an impervious structure, because the roof is gonna fall off. I'd suggest that, because you're this close to the pond, it's better for a car, with engine oil and stuff like that, to be on a cement slab of a garage covered in stuff rather than out in the, I mean, there's a lot of cars parked out there on the road because people are sandboxed in and stuff like that. But, one of the elements, you're smiling, but one of the elements is you protect health, safe public health and stuff like that. And closing that on on an impervious surface inside, probably a good thing, for how do I say, environmental purposes. You know, and in terms of, you know, the elements that you do, is it all to the neighborhood? There's a lot of people out there with huge garages and stuff, and on the sides, and so.
I wouldn't give mine up, I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
All right, I think everybody would love to have a garage. I have a 3-car garage, I'd like to have a 6-car garage.
so
All
if you
right?
have one here, you need a variance, and I'm suggesting a variance is reasonable. And it's within the spirit of the ordinance, because if you look at the essential character of that part of the neighborhood, it's not significantly altered by law.
Mr. Brown?
That, well, three things. I'm bothered by the assertion that the garage is reasonable of itself, reasonable as to its exact size and location, and reasonable because, quote, of the home's proximity to Northeast Pond. Could you define what that means?
Yes, we can disagree here, I'm
It's
going to advance.
The home's proximity to Northeast Pond.
That is why I gave you,
I've looked at that.
yeah. So in its totality, there's a lot of houses, some with garages, some without, that are on smaller lots, closer to the road, closer to butters and stuff like that, than this proposal. In its totality, I'm standing here with an absolute straight face saying I think it's perfectly reasonable and warrants a variance granting. So that's all I can say. You want me to concede something that I don't feel, you know, I should.
No problem. May I bring up the other thing?
Sure.
That, the letter, covering letter, seems to argue that because the original development of that section predated shoreline protections and our present knowledge of the function of wetlands, point and non-point pollution, eutrophication, nitrogen load, flood tempering, these concerns are, so to speak, dead in the water, and that the wetlands in this neighborhood, already having been compromised, holding out any standard for one more development is a lash on an already red horse.
I don't intend to make that point that you draw from that. I think that is an extension or conclusion you draw from the inference of my letter. That's not appropriate. It's a great argument to beat me down on this point and not grant it. I disagree. The point I'm trying to make is your zoning ordinance, now I'm getting ahead of myself to the hardship argument. You've got setback requirements for a big zone in town. For other parts of the town, it's appropriate, you know, to encourage a logical development consistent with those setbacks. Here is a portion of that zone that was developed at a time probably predating zoning when there were very small lots and all that stuff. It exists. And so to the extent that one of the things I have to address to prove to you that it's consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance is to say it doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I'm not saying that, you know, there may be an environmental impact by the granting of this, but if you condition this on the granting of, what is the environmental permit, the state permit that we were talking about before, Bruce?
Shoreline permit.
Shoreline permit, that will protect the horse from receiving its last lash, sir, you know?
But if I may, the last point on that is that I am left with the impression, my own, not your statement, that our duties to zoning exist only in larger parcels, and that a smaller parcel in the same zone does not have the same protections.
No, that, I'm not trying to make that point at all either. What I'm trying to say is that there are lots within your low density residential LDR zone that are different from others. They have unique characteristics. I'm starting to tread into my hardship argument because that's something I have to say. Well, let me just get on with it, I won't repeat it. This lot's small size and the way it came into being historically at a time when, you know, these type of zoning regulations weren't there, it's just a fact. I mean, it's just a fact. So you still have to protect small lots too. Your zoning ordinance tries to. It says if you have a pre-existing non-conforming lot, you can develop it. But the zoning ordinance puts a line in the sand in this town of Milton, it says it's gotta be at least 5,000 square feet. Well, this is a small lot too, but it's, you know, almost, it's more than 4 or 5 times that size. So what I'm saying is the granting of the variance is reasonable, because while you protect small lots from your zoning requirements also, the whole concept of granting variances is for this board to act in a reasonable manner as a safety valve. Are there exceptions that we should have to these general regulations? And sometimes there is. And in its totality, I'm saying this is a case that warrants it with this proposal. And if you attach a shoreline protection permit condition to it, you'll further protect the environmental considerations.
Mr. Bouillon?
So as part of the conditions to grant the variance, you are going to seek a shoreline permit?
Yeah, if you're gonna protect that as a condition,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well, I'm
That's
gonna
okay, right?
recommend,
Well,
but I wanted to know if that
so-
was their plan.
Am I under the understanding here that you will not eliminate the garage? Is that an option, or is it not? Is this, because this is a big thing to me. All right, I can only speak for my one vote. But if you eliminated one variance for that setback off the buffer, it would mean a lot as far as this plan to me.
So, I can turn around and ask the Jacksons to talk about that, but what I don't have the capability of doing is ask Steve Olds, what's that do to my design? Because you heard Dave Francoeur say it might screw things up. One of the thoughts I can say, I mean, I'm standing here, and not to push the thing, I'd like to see where the straw vote is. Because one of the things I can consider is, I guess, if this whole effort goes down, you know, because of that line in the sand of the garage.
Well, this is your one time to do it, because once we do the straw vote, we're not going back in to address this again.
I thought you said then you're gonna take a final vote.
Final vote, but as far as going back to discuss number 2, we're done with it after the straw vote.
Well, I would not say it's the final one, because if I go back to it, see if you kill this because of that, and we come back and we change the design second, I mean, I would hope you would still grant the variance for the septic. And I would hope you would still grant the variance for the frontage. You know? I don't know.
I have a
So-
problem.
So if I have,
Mr. Bean, in a minute.
Yes, sir.
Theoretically, I mean, if that's the case, I guess we could go back to the engineer, see is it feasible to redesign that, resubmit, and I think under Fisher v. Dover, that's a substantial
I have a
different
problem giving a
application.
variance for a wetland buffer to eliminate 14, 15 feet, only because you want a garage.
I don't know.
I'd understand if it was the house, but it's the garage. You know, my mother always said, and my father always said, you don't always get everything you want.
The variance from the setback for the wetland buffer, is it needed for the garage?
No, but if you eliminate the garage, move the house down approximately 18 feet, all right? You're still well within the 25-foot side is still there. You don't even need the variance for the wetland at that point. Because the way that you pointed out to us that this is a jog on the wetland. So if you move down and get away from where that pinch point is, you follow me?
Yeah, if I can approach just for a second.
Yeah.
Put this on. There's potentially 2 pinch points, Mr. Chairman. You know, there's this one. And I see what you're saying. But there's also, this, I don't know what this,
Well, if I go by this,
I don't know what this distance from here
well,
to here is.
here's my logic. It's a 50-foot primary right here, this dotted line. Okay?
But that
That
is-
line-
That's from the pond and not from the wetland. That is a distance 50 feet from the shoreline everywhere, and the dotted line behind that. So this, if I may reach over, this is a 50 feet from the shoreline. See how the shoreline goes like that?
Okay.
And this goes like that. And this is 75 feet from that, because that's a state regulation from the pond, and we meet that, or it was something in the ordinance, and we meet that. The wetlands are like this, so if I drew a wetland 50-foot thing, it would be it's something like, it's gotta be parallel to this crazy line. And I don't know this is 36 feet from here to here. It's 46 feet to the house. And I don't know what this distance would be to the house if we move it down. I don't know that with accuracy either. And I don't know if there are drainage and other considerations in that. I mean, if you shoot down for that, I guess I'd wanna come back, read it, talk with the engineer and maybe submit a alternative, application for a different design, having already got the variance for septic or whatever, but I'll come back, I still think it's a reasonable overall proposal.
Hey, Mr. Bean?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Esquire, please.
Yep.
You have specific variance requests, 1, 2, and 3,
Yep,
with a specific proposal for 2 buildings, a garage and a house.
and septic.
And a septic, correct, yes, thank you. And so, what is your opinion on accepting this plan or not accepting it, based on the totality of what we have here? And please discuss, we've heard that if we move the home by eliminating the garage, there's myriad engineering and topo challenges.
It might work. I just don't know for certain it is.
Or it might not.
Yeah.
And so, but to me, we deal with not hypotheticals, but we have a plan that you have brought forward here tonight. You are requesting 3 specific variances.
That would allow that plan.
Yes, and so I think to stay on track with, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, is, how does the board feel, and you can advance, that the plan as it is, a wetland buffer setback, a front setback relief, and a side yard setback? And I think that's the strength of your argument here tonight, and I think everything else is hypothetical, and we can talk all night.
Correct. And I think those 3 variances, granting them, are consistent with the spirit of the ordinance.
Including the garage.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I wish we had the answer to that question, my question. If we moved it down, where does it fall scale-wise?
So it's the way this works, I can't ask you a question, but I'm trying to read you, and I don't know, are you seriously going to say straw vote no on that one thing because of the garage? I'd suggest you shouldn't.
Anyone else have any input? Mr. Brown?
Let me speak on behalf of the applicant and the attorney. And on the one point, and that is the present roadbed as laid out by the town and is already a part of the deed. That means that there is unlikely to be any, given the low traffic of this area, any additional impact to the buffer to traffic going past a low-use road. And I think for the protection that offers the pond, travel well. On paper, it is easy to take these 2 structures, flip them, and put the deck where the black part of the garage is, and vice versa, or even to move the location of the deck so that it conforms to the absolute line of the buffer. So you would have a trapezoidal or an octagonal deck or whatever. If I may, Mr. Chairman, you have been jumping. I put together a list of things which I thought important as conditions for this, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt for page 6, paragraph 3, which you very clearly made a distinction between large lots and small lots as having little importance in zoning. So we'll leave that there. But the conditions I suggested was that all foundation corners be pin set so that there was no confusion as to where the house and any other approved structure went. That all drainage would follow current best practice by either town or state standard, whichever is the more stringent. That to include such things as roof drainage with gravel bed under it, rain barrels, or whatever. That all driveway surfaces shall be pervious. That
But Larry, aren't we getting ahead of
No,
ourselves with this, though?
Yes, but the, attorney, Mrs. Keller.
Weisgeld, like this way ahead.
Made the point that he would like to really know where we stand. And what I'm trying to suggest is that I'm in favor of the project, and I have exactly the same concerns as the chair. We previously served together on this board and had a much, quite similar garage in which it was the personal interest of the property owner to have a larger garage in spite of a property line easement. So the, that there should be any beach should be a perch beach rather than a sand beach, and that the garage is not for residential conversion.
So,
That's where I would go, and being willing to uncharacteristically hold my tongue on any objections to the other.
I'm staying here. You guys know, Mr. Brown, I don't know what a perched beach is, so you just clarify that. But everything sounds reasonable, and I'd suggest if you incorporate that in the variance grant, as a board, you could, that would be a grant on those conditions. It would still need the permit. I mean, it would seem to me that whatever the decision they had here, the chairman, could sign off on the final plan or something once it was submitted. It'd be a way of creating finality without coming back here on that stuff.
The way to handle that is to make sure that the shoreland permit plan that
shows
gets
all that.
submitted to the state DES is the same plan that's approved here.
And include those things, so there would be
Include all those
notations.
things.
That's a good idea.
And a perch beach just doesn't touch the water.
Oh, okay.
It's perched up away from the water.
So there's, okay. Yeah. Perfectly reasonable?
Yes, absolutely. There you go.
Yes, and I can tell you the Caputos would be more than happy to agree with that, because if they're happy with it, it would further the condition of the sale. Granted, that we still have to get the permit from the state. The permit from the state would be with a plan that included all those things, so if that condition were, so you would state those conditions and say they have to be shown on the plan, and then by getting that plan with that stuff included, you would know those conditions are, that'd be acceptable, and I think that's a reasonable, thing for the town to suggest.
Anyone else have any input before we do the straw vote? And with that said, take a straw vote from my right, Mr. Boyo. Okay, well, Mr. Brown's gonna want me to read it again, so I will. Okay, so a yes vote would be that the applicant should be allowed to have the variance for the, and the spirit of the ordinance is observed.
Aye.
Mr. Skillings?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Baker?
Aye.
And I'm opposed. And I think I've told you why.
You have. I know.
I don't like, with the buffer, I don't like cutting that at all. That's just my thing. When we start doing that, then we're gonna be setting precedent, and other lots that haven't been developed yet, then they're gonna be looking to do the same thing. So I just wanted to know your why, but that still passes at 4-0. 4-1, sorry, 4-1. Yeah. I don't count. Okay, number 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice because
You probably have heard this argument many times before. Supreme Court in Farrar v. Keene has said, imagine you put these things on a scale. I started to address this earlier, and I said I'm getting ahead of myself in addressing the substantial justice thing. So I recall, but I don't want to belabor and be redundant, but if denying the variance, granting the variance does substantial justice if the town is not harmed worse than the applicant and owner would be harmed by denying the variance. So let's say you put a scale in here, let's say, we're gonna say, what happens if you deny the variance? And I started to address this before, the owners don't get to sell this lot to the Jacksons, the Jacksons don't get to build this property. I mean, they're familiar with the area, they have relatives in the area, they wanna build and continue to be here, but with their own place. You know, to them personally, boom, there's harm out of that. The town, in denying it, you're already allowing a proposal that you have said is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance and does substantial justice. So, you know, by preserving this lot, not allowing it to be developed, that you've already, you know, indicating it's reasonable to do, perhaps with the conditions Mr. Brown's proposing, I would say that scale tips in a way that says you grant the variance. Because to deny it, the applicant is harmed more. So substantial justice is done by granting it because, you know, the applicants and everybody won't be harmed worse than the town would be harmed. And that's how the case law suggests that analogy.
Comment? Mr. Brown?
That, yeah. I voted with the majority out of courtesy. Substantial justice is different from spirit. And I have personally, as a character flaw, a low tolerance for mommy, daddy, if you know that feeling. Mommy says no, so you go to daddy. Daddy says yes, you go back to mommy and you say, daddy said yes. And
Okay, I know what you mean.
okay.
Yeah. Gotta be tuned up against your kids' system.
Yeah, and at the end of the New Testament, we put that, I would rather that, your aye should be aye and your nay should be nay. And I object to one in both ways. I think this should have come to the board with the applicant having bitten the bullet, taken the two lots, and I do not see substantial justice to the town zoning done through that floor process.
I don't understand what you mean by the applicant should have taken the 2 months.
2 lots.
I'm
The
sorry.
two,
Lots.
I'm sorry.
Made, in other words,
It-
not in limbo as it is now, whether or not it's gonna be 3 or 2 lots.
oh,
And, yeah,
okay, not to
and
They-
I'm sorry, I'm frequently accused with good reason of being too oblique. They're trying to hedge their bets.
I disagree. I mean, the only way to create, I mean, that lot is created as a matter of a plan. The town can tax it that way. So, and if the Caputos don't find, what if they wanna sell it eventually, you know, to a relative of theirs? And they're not ready to buy, or someone needs financing. I mean, they can't convey it to themselves and create that property description because the doctrine of merger of title says if you own abutting stuff, you own it all anyways. So the only way to, you know, that lot, that bigger lot has been created in the town's eyes. It just hasn't been created in the registry of deeds eyes. Does that make sense?
No. Because
Yeah. see
Because
that?
once you make it in the registry of deeds eyes, it can't go back to 3 non-conforming lots.
Correct.
There's the stipulation that I'm having a hard time with when you're saying they may not do this.
I don't know what they would do if you denied.
Well,
They
not-
want to grant, I mean, the planning board authorized this, basically saying as a condition to build on it, you're gonna have to go to the ZBA. Well, here we are.
Right.
So what do they do?
So
They
what-
find a buyer that buys the lot who doesn't know if they can do anything on it?
Well, like
No,
Mr.
no
like
one wants
Mr.
to
Brown
buy.
says, you know, you gotta bite the bullet. I mean, I agree with this statement. I think if this is something, they've spent a lot of money to get here, first of all. We all acknowledge that. All right? I think they should have, my personal feelings is that if you're gonna go down this road, you do it. You don't, like he said, hedge it. You know, you either gonna do it or you're not gonna do it.
They're doing it by this process. They're spending more money with this process. I don't know who, you know, Mr. Francoeur, he's in the world of buying and selling and representing people who sell and people who buy. Who's gonna buy this lot so that you and Mr. Brown can be satisfied that, okay, the owner now owns the lot as shown by the planning board thing? And now those people say, well, the planning board said you can't build on it unless you get variances because the little shaded area is there. So I buy it at the risk that I can't do anything. What do you sell it for? Peanuts, because it's not a buildable lot? What do you buy it for? I wouldn't buy it at all unless I could be assured I can do something. And the planning board acknowledged that by putting a condition on, said, you're gonna have to go to ZBA to get variances. Here we are. It's a process. As a property lawyer, with all due respect, I want to say, I don't see why you're getting hung up on that, because you shouldn't. Because, pardon me?
I just have to say, this is a normal procedure. It
Yeah.
happens in every zoning board of adjustment in the state. This is not unusual, this is normal, and I don't know why you continue to harp on this. I'm telling you that the planning board knew that these were lots of record, the lot line was being adjusted between them to make it less non-conforming, and it didn't, I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't even matter if you did it or not, because you'd still have the same small, narrow, buildable envelope, even if you went to the existing lot of record. And frankly, if they did that, they're right here on page 27, their sideline setbacks would have been 10 feet because of the size of that original lot.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm not asking,
But
I'm
you
not
still
saying I
would have
don't
had
need
to-
it,
But you
because,
still would have had to come to the zoning board.
right.
That's right.
Mr. Bean?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I listened where I'm a property owner in Hampton, New Hampshire for 3.5 hours of the ZBA where I enthusiastically supported an abutters conversion from a daycare to a 3-unit apartment. And sprinkled throughout that was, as Mr. Woodruff says, precedent for our decision tonight that there were contingencies, much so as they're addressed here tonight by the applicant and those that are seeking relief. Getting back to the present, because I thought we had already cleared that hurdle of the issue that you just mentioned, is granting the requested setback would do substantial justice. I feel as a person that owns 4 lots on the Salmon Falls River and put that into conservation easement, a wide buffer, on my own in 2008 with this board, for the planning board, that this does do substantial justice both to the town by taking non-conforming, which are always problematic. It enhances the justice to the neighborhood in terms of brand new construction, wonderful new construction, and it does justice to the applicant and the abutters. And again, the contingency, as Mr. Woodruff says, and he's the skilled one, that is commonplace in commercial ventures and residential ventures, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
I would add to Mr. Bean's statement that it will also bring additional taxes to this town, which we need.
Well, our decision can't be made on the money.
I'm just saying, he made a list of valid points and he left out money and I just added it.
Anyone else? Mr. Brio?
Yep, so, help me out here, Bruce. Is there any set condition saying that if granted, that this indeed will become the 2-lot and fulfill their dreams? I mean, that's what they're here for tonight, okay? They're not they're being money smart, make no mistake. They're not gonna invest into a property lot that they can't fulfill this project, and that's why they're here. So I don't know, could it be like a commitment in writing? To say that if it passes, if they're granted the variance. What's that?
I want to answer your question. All of these plans were submitted with the application, and it is definitely a given that if you approve the variances for setbacks tonight, based on this plan, and that's all you gotta say in your motion to grant it, based on the plan submitted tonight, you can put a date on it and who did it, they have to do this plan. That's all I'm saying. That should answer your question.
Yeah.
Right, I want a variance to say, do this plan. And if I understand what you're saying is can we put a time limit on when the deed would be given from the Caputos to the
Yeah,
Jacksons.
commitment, yeah.
So I'd ask you to avoid that, only because, you know, I'm a lawyer. I think of all the worst-case scenarios in the world. I go, what if, and I apologize. It's just to use a stupid example. You know, something happens to these guys and they can't buy it, how can they fulfill that condition?
Right,
You know,
yeah.
a truck hits them on the way home.
Yeah, and I'm just
You know,
trying to find a happy medium where it would meet,
I mean,
just
The
the,
variances
Chambers.
run with the land,
Right, they'd find
not
another
with
buyer.
owners.
right,
Right.
yeah.
So you really can't put that kind of a condition on the approval.
I can attest that there are several buyers that would be willing to buy this property.
Yeah.
If it was approved as is, and I think that the Caputos would even move forward and divide the deeds immediately. There's no reason. If they divide the deeds immediately, I sell the property like that.
Or they just need
I have a
someone
list
to
of names
sell
who
it
wanna
to.
buy the property.
They need someone to get the deed.
That's correct.
You know, that's another reason I had the Caputos, sign the application, because it runs with the land. If
Well, that's what I was getting at originally, what my point was.
If it is any assurance to you, one of the conversations outside before we came in is, well, okay, if it's granted, how soon can we close? And I'm the lawyer, and I have to say, well, you have to make sure this becomes final, so you gotta wait out a 30-day period for a request for reconsideration or an appeal, or, you know.
Yeah.
As soon as that time goes, boom, close, you know?
Right, and I bet that would happen,
Yeah.
okay? I'm just trying to.
It's what everyone wants.
I understand where Stan's coming from,
Mhm.
just trying to meet a happy medium here where he would feel more comfortable.
Okay, so, anyone else? Other than that, we're gonna go to the straw vote. We'll go with Mr. Brown first.
That,
Oh, you didn't tell me to read it.
no.
Well, I'm gonna read it,
I
if I can find it. Right here. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. A yes vote would be in their favor. And Mr. Brown, your vote?
I will vote abstain, and the record will show that an abstention counts with the majority.
Aye.
Practicing 40 years. I'll go with that.
Mr. Bulio?
Yes.
I will go aye on this. So that's gonna be 5-0.
401.
Well, if he's gonna have it in the record that he's gonna go with the majority, it turns into,
Abstentions count with the majority.
so it's
If we're
5-0.
wrong, the attorney up here likes 402.
I'm sorry?
I said, if he's wrong, the attorney up here likes 40 also. That works for me.
I don't like abstentions. I feel that when you're on this board, you should be able to make a decision one way or the other personally, but. All right, number 4, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished because,
Everything I've said so far, I don't think the, abutting properties are gonna be harmed, when this variance is granted, this house goes up. We walked the property, today, under an umbrella. From the corner, of the, land, furthest north on the road, there's a wooded area before the residential clearing on the next house is some 75 to 80 feet or something, and there's gonna be 10-foot, probably tree or something buffer, some of that's gonna have to be cleared for the septic, then there's 25 feet from there, well, there's gonna be 100 some odd feet between those houses and stuff. The whole general character of the neighborhood is such that, another small house with plenty of elbow room, and again, built on a lot which, because of the lot line adjustment, decreases its non-conformity. Otherwise, as you said, you're asking something, we don't wanna do that. I think you can all, use your own personal experience and judgment and say it won't affect, but I want Dave to also address that, please.
As a realtor, I'm dying to talk. I'm sorry. So my name's Dave Franker. I live at 48 Blueberry Drive, Somerset, New Hampshire. I also live on waterfront. I have a waterfront property. I live on about 70-acre pond. The reasons that a property would diminish surrounding values, specifically on a pond, would be if it was oversized, if it was a large property or crazy, and it would somehow take precedence over other properties. This isn't. This fits into character, into the neighborhood. When this property gets built, you could drive up and down that road and it'll look just like one of the other houses. You won't know any difference, and that's what we're looking for. The second thing is, does it block anybody's view? And it doesn't. There's not even a house across the street that would be sitting there and it would block their view. There's no house across the street, okay? So that would be another thing. And this is a kind of a weird meeting today because I do a lot of planning board meetings. I do a lot of meetings. I've been expert witness in court cases on real estate. I've done a lot of this. I've been doing real estate for 35 years. Sold a lot of waterfront properties in several areas around here. And typically what happens is you go into these meetings and you're taking a large piece of land and you're making it smaller. And people don't like that. And people that live near it, you know, say, hey, you're gonna put all these houses in, you're making this big, beautiful piece of land into small pieces, and it's gonna really bother us. Well, we're doing the opposite thing here. And I would say that if you don't believe me that it's not gonna diminish the property values, believe the people that didn't show up tonight, or they didn't write a letter. Because I can guarantee you, if you had a property that was gonna be built next to yours that would diminish your value, you would reach out to the town. And nobody is here, and I think that alone is the proof that it doesn't diminish property values, that they're not here. Because it's gonna be an ordinary house in the neighborhood. And we're actually taking a property that is 3 separate lots and making it into 2. And we're making the property bigger. And which is really the only out of character thing here, because everybody else has 100 feet of frontage. When this property is divided and you guys agree to do this and they buy it and everything's done, they'll have 150 feet of frontage, more than the others. And the other factor too that nobody knows about, but because I am a developer and involved in a lot of waterfronts, and I think you guys may know this law, that when you sell a waterfront property, you have to do a site assessment. You have to apply to the state of New Hampshire on the septic system, so the state can come in, and you have to look at what's there, okay? I can tell you that, and I know because I just put these exact septic systems that are being put in, the Elgin type systems that are proposed for this, these things are 10 times cleaner than the existing septic systems that the people have in their houses today. They have the old leach field ones with these things are so clean that that the water comes out of these systems cleaner than sewer treatment plants out of cities. I'm telling you, I've been through it. I just did a whole case on it. I had expert witnesses.
They just don't last long, that's all.
Well, it really depends on how you use them. But the affluent comes out of them. It's
Okay, we're getting into an area that we don't really need to get
Okay,
into. We're
but,
talking
so
about straight
anyhow,
values.
No, but it does matter because what I'm trying to tell you is the lots are bigger, the septic system's better, everything about this is better. And it just, nobody's gonna worry about diminished property values. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone have any input? Mr. Brown?
No.
Can you put in the minutes that Mr. Brown finally didn't have any input to a question?
I'm right there with you.
All right. Mr. Baker? Bullo?
So it doesn't block anybody's view because, across the street, because there's no houses there.
Right. So you're all, anyone else have any input? All right. So we're gonna do the straw vote. So we'll go, Mr. Skillings first. Okay, I'm gonna read it. I'll keep on forgetting to read it. So a yes vote would be in favor of that the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. Mr. Bullo?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
And the chair says yes, so that's 5-0. Now, go to number 5. You never thought we'd get to number 5, did you?
Last but not least.
Well, not necessarily. There's other stuff we can get to too if you want it. Little enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area because
The standard is that this property, for which we're seeking a variance, has special conditions that distinguish it from the zone in general, because, the low-density residential zone. Because it's the low-density residential zone that has requirements that the zoning ordinance specifically require be applied to the property. The 3 setbacks, 40 feet from, 40 feet from the road, 50 from the buffer, 25 from the sides. So what are the special, the LD, low-density residential zone, LDR zone, it's a much bigger area than just these lots along the Pond and Bow End Road. And for the majority, I don't know, I haven't surveyed the whole zone, so I don't want to misspeak.
Okay.
But I would presume that for a large part of the zone, those specific regulations make sense, you have new construction, it's appropriate to put it 40 feet setback. The lots are larger, 25 foot setbacks are fine. Wetlands, there may be wetlands or not. If there are, you comply with the setbacks, or if not, you seek a safety valve variance or something like that. Along Bolin Road, along the pond, this is a historically old neighborhood, hence the picture, tax map. That's the special condition of this property that distinguish it from others in the zone. It's on Bolin Road, it's on this old neighborhood by the pond, it's on these little cottages. They were created at a time, pursuant to a plan, lot 21, 20, and 22 on the deed, when people didn't think of these bigger sizes. Your zone now has these bigger sizes. So there's a hardship if applying those strict standards for setbacks, given the special conditions of the property, doesn't make sense. That there's no substantial relationship between applying those setbacks and to this smaller lot that has special conditions. And in other zones, other properties in the zone where it's bigger, it makes sense to apply those. Here, there's no substantial relationship to these small lots to say they should meet these setbacks. So long as they can be reasonable, so long as they can be designed for development that doesn't create environmental conditions that would be upsetting to neighbors or the town in general or anybody. Mr. Franco's addressed the septic system. You've suggested a shoreline protection permit. Mr. Brown has suggested some conditions the board might attach also. All of those will seek to protect everything and protect this property, which otherwise those specific setbacks are sort of protected in a much general sense. When I drive off 125 and enter Bolin Road, way before I get to this neighborhood on the pond, there are lots spread out, bigger lots and all that stuff. You don't need a shoreline permit there. These are out in the woods, bigger lot, 1-2 acre lots. These setback requirements make sense there. On Bolin Road, it doesn't, because there's special conditions to the property and just created a time when little tiny lots existed. This proposal in its totality is reasonable. You already had 4 straw votes saying it meets that, and I think it meets a hardship also for that same reason. The argument I embellish, and I also outline in my letter.
All done?
I'm done.
Okay, well, as a chair, I'm gonna give myself the benefit of go first. Can you please explain to me the hardship when Mr. Francoeur just sat there 10 minutes ago and said, all they have to do is get that into 2 lots and I got it sold? I have multiple people who buy it right now. That was his words. So where's the hardship?
If the variance is granted.
That's not what he said. He said just split. You said if he splits it.
No, I did say that.
Can you sell it right now?
Absolutely.
Wait. Now let me complete the question, please. Can you sell it? Where's my plan? The chairman says that you can sell it right now with this building envelope.
For
because
very little amount.
I mean,
Oh,
you can't develop it.
I'm very good at remembering things.
No.
You sat there and said all they have to do is split that into 2 lots right now. They got it sold. There are many people interested in buying it. Nothing about if we approve this variance for this particular plan.
It was implied. Are you going to call me a liar?
I'm not calling you a lie. I'm saying what I heard.
So absolutely, I've had multiple clients that started on this lot that would not buy it because of this situation. And this is why we started this process. I contacted Steve Oles. I had to go through this. I'm the one that started this whole thing to get it done. We're making 2 big lots, and now we've got buyers, and I have multiple buyers upon an approval would buy it.
So let me ask
2
you a
lots,
question.
like I said, 2 lots.
Go ahead.
It's useless.
I want to bring you back to this idea of the hardship. Each board member has to ask themselves the question, especially looking at the buildable envelope that little narrow thing is. Can this property be reasonably used without the variance? If the answer is no, then there is a hardship.
But I want to step back a little bit on that because we're looking at a plan for one specific home and a garage. Who's to say there ain't someone out there to buy that property and put a smaller home without a garage that would maybe one less.
You would that person would still need to come and ask for variance relief.
Maybe not
Unless-
3 though.
Unless they can build something in this tiny envelope. This picture.
I'm not saying they have
this
to build
picture
that shaded
demonstrates
area.
that standard, because the application of your zoning ordinance specific requirements, which is part of the language of the standard you're gonna reread before the test, if applied to this property, means develop it in this shaded area. No one can do that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So, as applied to this property, which has special conditions, what are the special conditions? Its size and proximity to wetlands and all that. The application of those setback requirements, which requires you to build in this shaded area, they don't bear a fair and substantial relationship to this property with its unique conditions. And that is a hardship by definition of the case law in the Supreme Court of this state.
Mr. Brown.
The ZBA has been mostly dead since Simplex.
Since when?
Simplex.
Well, no.
And we have a nicely sized house that is not, quote, distinguishable from any other properties as you go down the road. It will fit right in and it's not noticeable. As it is right now, it could be used for spaghetti storage. Long and thin. The ZBA does not have the power to require the applicant to build a house that is 26 feet wide and 40 feet long with one garage underneath in a corner. That would give a footprint of 1,040 feet compared to the 2 combined footprints of 900.
I've never done that math, but
That's as good as I get. On that basis, one, we do not have the power to require a specific structure.
I agree.
The reason I abstained is my objections were not reasonable, and you have a duty to avoid that kind of passion. So that's why I abstained. My hope is that what I see as the temper of the board is for approval. We have the good counsel of the town planner, and we have already 4 points of approval. What I am hoping the board will approve is the list of conditions that begin with the necessity of the final conversion into 2 lots. And if everybody gets killed in a common train wreck, that's unfortunate, but the lots will be
So if the condition states that the variance is only good if it applies to this, if and when it applies to this merged lot, that's fine, because the variance is good for 2 years. This closing will occur hopefully within 45 days, well, longer, because we have to do a shoreline permit, I don't know, now when I go outside and we say we can close within 31 days, that's not so, because
I'm going to stop you there, Larry, because we're getting into stipulations and so forth, and that's after this is done. We don't, I have the same feeling you do. This is probably going to pass, but let's take care of what we're at our hand right now.
May I, one question. Would the attorney be kind enough to say that the ZBA may of its own authority impose a condition less than 2 years?
Well, as an attorney, and I've never been posed that question directly in my feet, and it is my nature to not concede a thing, okay? Because I don't know how long it's gonna take to get the shoreline permit, because I have other applicants trying to get things out of the state, and they go, you're so backlogged and stuff. So here's my answer. You have the absolute right as a board to impose reasonable conditions to granting of a variance. So the issue in the sand is it reasonable to shorten that 2-year time limit? And I would suggest to you, it's not, because the legislature said 2 years is a reasonable time. They thought it was so reasonable that they made it a statutory law. So for you to make a short, I would encourage you not to do that. You know, and I don't wanna stand up here just to say, yeah, we wanna get a yes vote, that's okay. I would say, you know, the academic in me as a lawyer says, no, that doesn't make sense, because it's questionable whether it's a reasonable condition. You're sitting there, I was thinking of this, I'd say, I don't, because, you know, what if the state, it takes me a longer time, I think 2 years is reasonable.
But I think everybody's forgetting the fact that the 2-year time limit goes away as soon as there's substantial vesting. And the courts have said that substantial vesting is when you do things like applying for a building permit, which is not construction, it's not even transfer of real property, but applying for a shoreland permit, I think would fall under substantial vesting, because you're gonna pay a lot of money and put a lot of effort into it.
You know, maybe so.
And that's the way I feel about it, you know, as a zoning administrator, that's the way I would rule. So, I mean, whether you agree with me or not, it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you how I would rule. I've worked in several communities. That's the way it is. Substantial vesting takes that 2-year time limit away.
And as applicants attorney.
All right, I want to get back to number 5. This is all discussion we should be having after the straw vote for number 5, in my mind. So, anyone else have anything to do relative to number 5?
Mr. Chairman, I enthusiastically support the council's last paragraph. While a fair and substantial relationships exist in enforcing the setbacks elsewhere in town, where there's more land area, here on Bolin Road, among the small lots, no such fair and substantial relationship exists, period, proves the point right there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so now we're going to go to the straw vote. We'll start with you, Mr. Brown. Oh, we're going to read it. All right. Number 5, little enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. So a yes vote would be that you agree with the applicant. Mr. Brown?
That, I read the last paragraph completely in reverse and vote aye anyway.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Mr. Bullo?
Aye.
Mr. Skillings?
Aye.
The chair votes opposed. So that's 4-1. Now, before we do our final vote, any discussion on, as we were going down, with any stipulations and so forth that you want their input on?
Well, I guess I would urge the board to recommend the town planner's conditions that he has written out here.
And what I'd like to do is get it into the record for the live stream, what the planner's recommendations for suggested conditions are. If you give me that leeway, it'll only take a minute.
Go ahead.
And this is
all right.
I will read it, if ever the board's in agreement, I will read it for the record. All your things.
Well, they're not all written down there. And I reserve the right to give this board suggestions. And if
Okay.
you don't wanna let me speak now, that's fine.
If I'm not letting you
But
speak, I thought I had all
At
your,
some point, and give you what my suggested conditions are, should the board wish to grant the variance.
I thought you already had given it to us, that's
I
why I
did
said
not.
that. Well, throw that
They're
away.
not all on that paper.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, may we have the recommendations from the town planner for the record at this time?
Sounds good to me.
All right, again, should the board grant the variance, the planner suggests, and this is just a suggestion, that there be 7 conditions. And you can add or subtract or not pay any attention to. But for the record, I suggest that one condition be that the foundation corners of the dwelling and garage be surveyed by a New Hampshire licensed surveyor and pinned in the field to correspond with the location and size required by the variance, especially if the variance notes that the plan that was submitted is what the variance is gonna be. 2, a shoreline permit from New Hampshire DES be obtained, and the plan for said permit shall be the same as the plan approved in the granted variance. The shoreline permit shall be submitted at building permit application. 3, best management practices for stormwater quality be employed and shown on the stormwater permit plan, such as roof edge drip line filtration trench around the perimeter of the structures, rain barrels under downspouts, the use of pervious pavers for walkways and patios and the use of pervious asphalt for driveways. 4, the area directly adjacent to the shore, say 5 feet, shall be planted with appropriate shrubbery and not planted as lawn and shown on the shoreland permit plan. 5, natural fertilizers that protect the water quality shall be used exclusively. 6, DES septic approval for the location as shown on the plan submitted with the building permit application. 7, wellhead protected radius easement from the Caputos as part of the transfer of the property to Jackson. So those are the 7 suggested conditions. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to add one. It says on the plan here, there's a shed, that there's a question mark if it's gonna be removed. I'd like to make it that the shed is removed. Wait a minute. All right, anyone else?
Yes, that the garage shall not be converted to residential use.
Shall not be converted to residential
To
use?
residential use.
It's not a lofted garage.
Not gonna be an apartment.
Okay, because the way that read that wording is that it would have to be commercial, because it cannot be used by residential.
I think what you're saying that can't be put in a bedroom upstairs or change it from a garage to extra bedrooms or something?
So shouldn't it be that the garage would be for a housing of automobiles and lawn equipment only? Be more specific than,
No, that the garage shall not be converted for residential use.
okay, I see, now I'm following what you're saying, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
That's fine.
And that the other one was that the Bruce, you had better language. The wellhead protection zone shall be encumbered from the Caputo lot.
Yeah, that would be, I would do that by, in the deed from
Indeed.
Caputo to Jackson, it would grant them not only their lot, but that little part of the circle that's on the Caputo's land would be an easement benefiting the Jacksons and thus encumbering the Caputo
Would be
land.
encumbered by transfer deed.
Yes,
I think that's what I said.
yeah, well, it's not, I get it.
I did not see that on your earlier.
No, it wasn't, it was something you added on. You all done? You all, any more?
Did the, I understand Bruce was satisfied that we needed to say nothing regarding the time frame for the conversion to 2 lots, correct?
I don't think it's in our best interest to shorten it less than the 2 years.
Oh, not to mention it at all.
You know,
Well, it's like the town planner had stipulated, I mean, once, what's the language you used?
Substantial vesting.
In other words, once the ball gets going,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, it's out of play anyway.
But that's what I thought. That was just the shed removal, non-residential
Okay,
conversion, and the wellhead protection.
all right. Anyone else have any suggestions?
Mr. Chairman, that's written on the plan right here about the shed.
It's written on there, but I wanted in that it's gonna happen.
We have no objection to that.
Anyone else? Mrs. Scully? Okay, with that said, we're gonna take the final vote. So I'll start with Mr. Brown. Oh, I wanna read it. I gotta turn my page over here. Okay. Okay, we're gonna take a vote that the applicant will be approved for a variance for legally granted, oh, I'm reading the wrong, the variance number, a variance, what the hell is it? Excuse my language. I want the specific, there's too many papers here. There it is. That a yes vote will be in favor of the request by Daniel Jackson for variance for Article 3 of the Milton zoning ordinance, relief from front setbacks, relief from the side setback, Article 13, relief from wetland buffer setbacks for property located at 240 Bowling Road, Milton, map 23, lot 76-3, in the low-density residential zone. And I'll start with Mr. Brown.
Can you add the words based on the testimony given and the plan submitted?
Just for you, I'll do that.
It's kind of important.
Okay, I'll do it for you. Mr. Brown?
The resident curmudgeon, aye.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Mr. Bouillon?
Aye.
Mr. Skillings? And the chairman's gonna vote no, and the reason being is, when I vote no on one of the straw votes, I never vote in favor at the end.
I understand.
All right? So, in fact, it's gone through a majority of 4-1.
And on behalf of the Jackson Bank Kudos, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, we do not have any minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully we get all that straightened out when we get our new clerk.
I understand she's starting all Monday.
Thank you.
It's a male, isn't it?
I understand, oh, did I say she?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I understand that whoever it is starting.
When is a new,
Ashley is doing the minutes tonight. I've been taking notes so that I get all your votes and all your discussions. But Ashley is watching the live stream.
excuse me, we're still,
She's doing the minutes.
Larry, we're still in a meeting here. Okay, I'm sorry, Bruce, what?
We'll do a short notice first, and then we'll do a long one because
We'll get the one on there.
Okay, without any more input, anyone else have any comments on anything?
I'd like to just ask Bruce, you added a couple of items to the email you sent out this afternoon that you just read.
His umbrella.
Look into that, make sure.
Yeah. Alright, so, I lost the train of what you asked me.
Well, you sent out,
That's all his stipulations that he read off.
Yeah, I know, but the one that you sent out stopped at 5. You added a couple tonight. Can you just issue that in the email like you did,
Oh, sure. With the 9. Because
Yeah.
you ended up with 9 conditions.
or was it 9? Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Yep. I'll send that out.
okay.
Okay, so with that said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Stand up and look.
And I don't know if we have another case coming up. I don't know, Bruce, you know of anything?
I think one's come in,
You know?
yeah, but I haven't looked at it yet, and so.
Hey, Andy? It's Stan Nato. Can you come down to the town hall and walk up? Because I don't know if my code's gonna work. I haven't tried it since they gave me a new one.
Good night, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's it.
I have a key, but I don't know about the code. All right, I don't know it.
Only 4 fall down.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Works for me. Well, we're still sitting down, so when on the way out, I'll do it. And now, can I do it on the side, the Board of Selectmen room, or do I have to do it out front?
See you guys.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks.
See you, Steve.
All right, so we gotta shut this thing off, Bruce, or is this gonna kill itself?
He didn't tell me that. It seems to me that what we have to do is.
Unplug it?
Yeah.
So that's how I usually do things.
You know, it just kills the key, the laptop.
Say that
It
again?
usually kills the laptop and it shuts it all off. He exits out of it,
He X's out of the control, the software control?
the control board.
Something about turning this off up here too.
Yeah, like it's just a power switch on that one,
And the back of it, yeah.
in the back so it doesn't overheat.
Okay, so
Let's see.
what we can do is go to, instead of hitting the X, I can hit, well, there's no close, there's an X.
Just an exit, right?
Yeah, so I did it.
That's it.
Although this is still on.
That's because this is still,
So what?
switch to hybrid.
I don't know.
Maybe this is what I have to.
I never got trained on it.
Well, my computer's being controlled by Gagnon, by Steve Gagnon. So,
That goes back.
I don't know, Steve, if, where's the microphone?